My first management job was at a bank. I was an office manager at a bank, and I had a staff of about 5 people, I believe. And I remember the prerequisite for that position was not that I had completed any management training courses or anything of that nature, but it was just the fact that I was a part of a training program that we did rotations through the bank, and then we were ultimately placed. I was ultimately placed in retail banking. That was my choice, the division that I wanted to go into, and was an office manager at a banking center. And I can remember it being most of my, I wouldn't say fairly easy, in that most of my focus was really on the operations side of the bank and not necessarily in handling the staff, even though that was a part of my job responsibility. I did the scheduling, and of course you interact with the staff because you're management and all of that. But I can remember one of the first kind of hiccups in my management journey was because I was relatively close in age. I had just graduated from college. So I was like around, I don't know, 22, 23, somewhere there. And I remember that the customer service reps were close in my age, and one in particular came in, and we were having some issues with her being on time, and she had some surgery on her eyes for her vision. And I remember her saying to me that I was intimidating to talk to, even though I had an open door policy. I communicated, I had open door policy. She did not feel comfortable coming to me. And at that stage in my career, having had, no real training, no training on, you need people skills in management. It's just not enough to do the job well or know the intricate details of the job, or even the job that your staff is responsible for doing day in and day out. You need to have people skills. And at that time, because we were so close in age, there would always be an issue with, how we were too familiar with one another. So we were overly familiar. The lines got blurred a lot because of we were close in age, and some of the conversations breeded that familiarity where y- you walked a fine line between employee, employer, and like friends. Like we cool. Because we spent a lot of time together working together at that bank, opening and closing. A lot of times it might be me and someone else one on one, especially as we close the banking center out daily. So that was like the first hiccup in my management journey. And then after that, I had an individual contributor role for a long time because I was an instructional designer, corporate trainer, and I trained other managers. And so then I conducted training and gave and supervisory skills like coaching and feedback and all of those things. Then I trained it, so I knew how to do it because I was a trainer, and I developed and designed those programs for new supervisors. But I will say that the job that really helped me hone my skills the most was in politics. I was an elected official for 15 and a half years in 2 municipalities under 5 different administrations. And there were years where I was council president. So I was president of a 7 member council body, and the council body was elected, and everybody came from different backgrounds and different perspectives. And you hope that the common goal was that you wanted to move the municipality forward, so that was your common goal, and that's what helped you to kind of align all these different perspectives towards in the direction to move towards that goal. But that is where I learned the most about managing people and being a people person, emotional intelligence, flexing your communication style, all those things that, unfortunately, with newer managers, individual contributors who are promoted into a role, managers that are new to management, new to the organization and culture. There's various reasons or ways that people can find themselves in a management position and ill prepared. A lot of times there are subject matter experts, or you may hear them referred to as SMEs, who are very, very good at what they do, are elevated to a leadership role. And I've been on projects where that's been the case, where a project lead for a certain area was really an individual contributor who did not have any prior management experience, who just really excelled in what they did, and they were going to lead that area on a project because they really knew that job and the role and the responsibilities like the back of their hand. But it takes so much to be a great leader, a great manager, a great supervisor. And one of the main components is being able to communicate effectively. One of the things I learned as a new banking center manager was, when that employee came to me, is to sit down and talk to her about what she found intimidating, so that I could begin to look at those things in myself, especially when I communicated or interacted with her, so that I could flex what my natural style was to meet her needs. And I didn't perfect it then, in all honesty. It was just the beginning of, hey, this is the mirror. This is something, this is a weakness in your management style that you need to look at. I am very relatable, and that wasn't necessarily the issue. I think the issue for her was when I wasn't happy. And the issue for me personally was not to take things personal. It wasn't a personal affront when my employees were late. It wasn't a personal affront if they had questions. It wasn't a personal affront even if they disagreed with the direction that I wanted them to take. Even though I was their manager and I was telling them, okay, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. If they question her, they're like, oh, I don't really want to do that. It wasn't a personal affront. And that was something that came with growth, maturity, and training, sufficient training to understand how to flex, first of all, to be able to identify my communication style, to be able to flex my communication style, and even identify beforehand when my communication style might be an issue. And those things I really didn't perfect until later on in life, when I was council president. I was dealing with other members who were equally pitted, who were equally vested, who had the same authority. Even though I was council president and I did operate in a slightly different elevated authority, for the most part, as far as voting on issues and bringing issues to the table, we had the same authority by way of the municipal charter, and by our ordinances. We had the same level of authority in that respect. But in talking to not employees, they weren't my employees, talking to my council members, my council body, and making sure that everyone felt heard, to make sure that one I could talk to one person one way, and I'm a very direct communicator. I have learned over time to wrap my words. So you may even find now sometimes I'll slow down in my rate of speech because I'm thinking about the best way to present this, because communication is two-sided. It's not just the person who's conveying the information, but it's the person who's receiving the information. You know that you're an effective communicator when your message is received with the same intention that you delivered it with. And it's not hard for communication to be misconstrued. Your tone, your choice of words. My mother used to say all the time, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And those are things that I often think about. But just even your emotional intelligence, knowing that, hey, how do I feel about this? Am I able to be objective, or am I being subjective? Is there something personal that is interfering with the way that I'm able to communicate, or the way that I'm able to perceive, or my perspective regarding this situation? And so new managers don't always have the benefit of that. Having been a learning and development consultant for well over 25 years at this point, I have looked back and seen, I know when someone has had some training. I mean, training doesn't fix everything. Let me say that, because just because you lead a horse to water doesn't mean that they're going to drink, right? You can't make them drink. But if you provide information, most people want to be able to do their jobs effectively and efficiently. And if you give them the tools necessary to do their job, I have found in my 25 plus years of experience that people will do it if you give it to them. Most people, the ones that will reject it, who reject change, there's a minority of people who will just blatantly not do it. But if they feel like it makes their job easier, then they will do it. And what most good leaders, not most, what good leaders know is that if you work with your employees, they will work with you. You are only as strong as your weakest link. And you, what a good leader wants is when they walk, they want to know when they look behind them that their team is behind them. And a even better leader can lead from behind, can give enough information to their staff, to their team, that they don't need to be there micromanaging every move, every nuance. They don't even have to be the one making the game plan. That they've equipped their team to be able to operate without them, operate with some autonomy and make decisions in the best interest of your consumer, your end user, the team, whatever that might be. But managers need to have, and if you are someone who's been placed in a position and you haven't been given training, you are going to do yourself the biggest favor if you get some um, even if you don't have training, if you read some books, if you do some research, if you really try to look at yourself and look at your team and really facilitate feedback, 360-degree feedback, so you can see where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. And if you're really working on your weaknesses, people respect that. People respect someone who is willing to flex, who's willing to grow, who's willing to develop, who's willing to evolve, who's willing to do the work alongside of them. And I found that even as a new manager, in that situation, I left that center and I was moved to another center. And I was at that point, I was actually promoted. I was office manager at the one bank, and then I became the banking center manager at another bank. And I just kept it real with my staff. Like, it was certain things that I didn't know. Like, I didn't. You should be the knowledge leader at the time. This is really no excuse. At the time, I was pregnant. I had a lot going on, and so I was like, "Hey." I had one of my customer service reps who's really good. I was like, listen, I need you to be the knowledge leader here. So any memos that come down, any new directives, any new processes, any of those things, I need you to let me know. And then I'm going to leave you in charge of, educating everyone else in the branch about what we need to do and how we need to move forward. So delegation. A lot of managers don't know how to delegate. They want to they want to be a gatekeeper. They want to hoard everything because they feel like sharing information makes them a threat. Being a silo in and unto yourself, that's what makes you a threat. A good leader is someone who delegates, who shares information, who shares authority, who gives autonomy so that their employees can think. Because what you always want to do is you always want to be able to have employees be in a position where they're training for the next step. So they're ready for the next step, the promotion, the even if it's a lateral move somewhere else, that they're ready for that. That is your job as a leader, to make sure that they are developed and they are ready, and that any area in which they feel like they need more development, that you are providing those opportunities for them. So everyone is not meant to be a manager. Unfortunately, there are people who are operating in that role, and they know there are a lot of people who were, promoted or brought into a position that they only want to manage their desk. And you can make that easy and I have other videos on my channel about this, about, how to lead your leader, like how to make your life easier. If you know that you have someone who really just wants to keep their head down and do their job, and they're willing to delegate, and you want the experience, you want the exposure, because ultimately you do have leadership aspirations, to be like, hey, let me take this off of your desk. I can be responsible for this if you're okay with that. I just need you to hold my hand and give me some training and oversight, and I'll be happy to move forward with this. Someone who really just wants to do their job, who's been put in that position because they're really just that good at what they do, and they don't want to lead, they're okay with delegating and letting go of some of that responsibility. So if that's something that you're interested in, then I would definitely pursue that. But yeah, everyone who is in management shouldn't be there. And if you're new to management and you have aspirations, you feel like you need some additional information, there's tons of places and resources. There's books, there's, training courses online that you can take and look up to figure out like what does your supervisory journey look like? What are your do a SWOT analysis? What are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats? How do you move forward? How can you be a better people person? Because it's really about being able to meet your employees and your team where they are, how to be flexible, how to gain buy-in, how to share information, all of those things. So again, online you'll find a lot of on my channel videos about how to delegate, because that's a really hard thing for new managers, even for control freaks, to relinquish some responsibility. You'll find all those here. Thanks, and I'll see you in my next video.